This is alert 3. Crash, crash, crash. This is alert 3.
美国过去16年没有发生过致命的商业航空事故，不幸的是，这一记录在前天被打破。一架庞巴迪 CRJ-701客机与一架美国陆军西科斯基 HU-60黑鹰直升机在空中发生相撞，最终坠毁在波托马克河中。庞巴迪客机上有64人，黑鹰直升机上有3人，截止目前还没有发现幸存者。那么这两架飞机是如何相撞到一起的呢？我们先来看看庞巴迪 CRJ-701客机，注册号为 N709PS， 纪龄20年，由 PSA 航空公司为美国之鹰运营。航班号 T5342，直飞航线是从堪萨斯州的威奇托飞往华盛顿。飞机于当地时间下午5点38分从威奇托机场19R跑道起飞，经过一段时间的飞行，顺利抵达罗纳德里根国际机场空域。机组人员于是向塔台申请通过里根国际机场的01号跑道降落。01号跑道位置如视频所示，但是塔台拒绝了机组人员的申请。塔台指示机组人员通过33号跑道目视降落。33号跑道位置如视频所示，机组人员开始变更降落航线，飞机需要稍稍右转，然后再左转对齐33号跑道。塔台向机组人员下达了降落许可，33号跑道可以降落。庞巴迪客机开始朝33号跑道目视进近。我们再把视线转移到黑鹰直升机上来，这架黑鹰直升机呼号是 PAT-25。这架黑鹰直升机从弗吉尼亚州贝尔沃堡的戴维森陆军机场起飞，执行夜间训练任务。机组人员沿波托马克河上的标准航线低空飞行。圣顿地区直升机很多，因此设有指定的航线和高度。直升机当时在航线以上飞行，飞行高度为200英尺。此时，庞巴迪客机的飞行高度是500英尺。两架飞机高度上相差300英尺，但是庞巴迪客机的高度在一点一点的下降，同时直升机的飞行航线将要穿越庞巴迪客机的下降航线，这就为撞击事故埋下了伏笔。两架飞机的飞行员需通过目视观察对方的位置，以避免两机相撞。这个时候，塔台询问直升机 PAT-25 能看到庞巴迪 CRJ 客机吗？直升机答复能看到。塔台随后开始指挥其他飞机的起降。画面中可以看到两架飞机逐渐靠近，随后在200至300英尺高度相撞。画面显示，两架飞机瞬间解体爆炸，机场随即关闭。现在所有人都在问，到底哪里出了问题？责任在谁？首先需要指出的是，两架飞机的飞行员操作并无异常和违规。直升机沿着标准航线飞行，客机也在执行标准的进近程序。塔台当时还刻意询问了直升机能不能看到庞巴迪客机，直升机飞行员明确答复能看到。既然能看到庞巴迪客机，为什么就撞上去了呢？我认为有2种可能。一是直升机飞行员其实并未真正看到庞巴迪客机，可能把其他飞机当成了庞巴迪客机；二是直升机飞行员确实看到了庞巴迪客机，但是庞巴迪客机的降落航线比较陡峭，降落路线又有转弯，导致直升机飞行员后面的视线受阻，未能准确判断庞巴迪客机的位置，未能准确估计庞巴迪客机的降落航线。有专业人士指出，黑鹰直升机的飞行员可能在飞行的过程中戴了夜视镜，夜视镜缩小了飞行员的视野范围。当然，晚上两架飞机通过目视分离的方式来规避撞击，本来就存在很大风险。夜间飞行，特别是靠近河边的夜间飞行，河面会反射大量白光，这会增大机组人员观察周边飞机的难度。何况直升机还要穿越庞巴迪客机的降落航线，这就进一步增大了撞击的概率。此时也有人指责空管人员夜间让庞巴迪客机通过33号跑道降落有些过于冒险，通过目视分离的做法也不明智。夜间通过目视分离的方式飞行本来就存在很大争议，在欧洲这种情况几乎不会发生。1年前，德国汉莎航空在旧金山机场降落时， 也被要求目视分离保持距离，但是被汉莎航空拒绝了，理由是公司规定禁止此类操作。事实上，在雷达屏幕上，碰撞警告在撞击之前就已经出现了。或许是空管过于自信，错误地认为直升机能够看清庞巴迪客机，并且绕过客机飞行，但是结果刚好相反，最后两架飞机还是相撞了。最后，我非常好奇的是，究竟是谁规划了直升机的这条飞行航线？很明显，这条航线正好位于33号跑道的进近航线上，并且在垂直高度上与33号跑道的降落航线相交，因此飞机撞击的条件具备了，就看什么时候发生了。下面是撞击事发后记者采访的内容，来看看航空专家怎么说的。
Planes. Cedric, you mentioned something to me earlier last hour about what it's like and how you focus when you're flying a helicopter and why that might have impacted things because, as Mary noted, the pilots were asked, do you have visual confirmation? Can you see this plane? Where are helicopter pilots normally focused as they're flying a mission like this?
Normally they're focused, and this may not be something that's logical to people who don't fly, but they're normally focused on the ground because one of the things that a lot of helicopter pilots do, especially in the military, is they fly what's called nap of the earth. They fly right along the surface of the earth at very low altitude. So they're used to looking down, not necessarily looking either sideways or up, and that is one of the key things that is really important, to note that they may not have seen the right aircraft when they were told by air traffic control, did you see this particular aircraft? Did you see it? They said yes. They replied affirmatively, but they may not have seen the correct aircraft.
Right. And for people who don't live in this area or perhaps don't fly into this airport, it is worth noting that the traffic is pretty constant. It's an incredibly busy airport, and even for this particular type of jet, this CRJ, there's a number of them that fly because of the nature. This airport services a lot of, it's honestly here because members of Congress want to be able to fly. There's all these small flights coming from small cities across the country that use these jets. I mean, as a political campaign reporter, I've flown to, all over the country to all sorts of small cities on these planes and taken this exact approach myself many times. Mary, I want to play what we have from the air control tower from the FAA, the interaction between them, and then we'll talk about it. Let's watch that.
Pass 25, get the CRJ in flight. Pass 25, pass behind this CRJ. 2017. I don't know if you caught earlier what happened, but there was a collision on the approach in the 33.
So there you could hear the air traffic controller instruct the helicopter pilot to fly behind the plane, and then you could hear him react when he figured out what happened. What did you learn when you listened to that?
Well, I learned, several things. One, that they were flying with at least communication with air traffic control. The air traffic controller was certainly trying to keep all the traffic separated, as is the job of an air traffic controller. The aircraft from the transmission clearly had priority, was going into land. It would have priority and under total air traffic control. And given maybe perhaps even just a second or more of time, they might have realized, the plane is right there and taken evasive measures. And the helicopter would have been much more maneuverable. And of course, the aircraft could have taken evasive maneuvers if they saw it. They probably didn't. Remember, the aircraft is a low winger. The wings are below. There's, as I always remind people, there's no rear view mirror on the airplane. And there actually have been discussions over the years to put cameras that you can see a 360 around the plane.
We have that in our cars.
Right.
You'd think that would be something that would be standard for pilots.
No, there was a lot of discussion on that after 9/11, actually. But and then that lets us know that the air traffic controller was, reminding the helicopter, do you have it in sight? Because the helicopter was doing, old-fashioned flying, at least at that part of see and avoid.
Let's take we have a little bit of new information from a witness to this midair collision. Let's listen to that. Watch.
I looked back again just to see if I could maybe see it land. And this was 3 seconds later. And at that point, it was banked all the way to the right. I would say maybe past the right, past 90 degrees. I could see the underside of it. It was lit up a very bright yellow, and there was a stream of sparks underneath it. It looked like a Roman candle.
It looked like a Roman candle, he says.
Well, and that gives us, more clues. Just so many of these ear witness, eyewitness, and recordings give so many clues. But the fact that it was a Roman candle means that there was a fire. The fuel tanks, and they're in the wings, were perhaps pierced. But whatever happened at that point. And other witnesses in the video show the flash point in the fire. But since it was a Roman candle, it was on fire, and probably at that point a lot of damage had been done and it was not controllable.
Cedric, a helicopter like this, give us a sense of, how big is it compared to the plane, this particular type of bird?
So it's smaller, generally speaking, than the CRJ aircraft, and it may have been difficult. Well, I think it was absolutely difficult for the pilot of the airplane to see the helicopter. I don't think the pilot of the airplane was focused on the helicopter at all. The helicopter pilot should have been able to see the airplane. But we don't know.
特朗普认为撞击的发生与奥巴马、拜登政府的 DEI 政策有关，这些政策允许聘用残疾人在这些关键岗位上工作。
I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration, but they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent.
So keeping them honest, the FAA's language about diversity was present during the first Trump administration as well. It basically was an effort to follow federal law and not discriminate against people with disabilities, particularly, by the way, veterans with injuries or disabilities that they've suffered in combat. In fact, increasing federal hiring of qualified people who happen to have disabilities, that's been a goal of government agencies since the 1970s. Here's a version of the FAA webpage on diversity. It was captured by the Internet Archive in December 2020, his last full month as president. And it talks about diversity and inclusion and how it's, quote, integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel across our nation and beyond. Now, the Department of Transportation has tried to increase its hiring of people with what they call targeted disabilities, meaning people with intellectual, psychiatric disabilities, but also deafness, blindness, and paralysis. The FAA has always stated, though, that anyone hired would have to meet qualifications of the job. And this, again, was the policy under Donald Trump's first administration. Daniel Dale notes in his fact check that the FAA wrote in 2019 that the, quote, candidates in this program will receive the same rigorous consideration in terms of aptitude, medical, and security qualifications as those individuals considered for a standard public opening for air traffic controller jobs. President Trump did later in his news conference today backpedal a bit.
We don't know that necessarily it's even the controller's fault.
On DEI and the claims that you've made, are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. The people in the helicopter should have seen where they were going. I can't imagine people with 20/20 vision not seeing, what's happening up there.
So he's kind of all over the place. He was blaming diversity, then he's saying that maybe it wasn't the air traffic controller's fault, suggesting that the pilots in the helicopter were the problem, should have seen. Then he seemed to be unsure of his accusations about diversity hiring. At a signing ceremony later in the day, he said this.
Mr. President, to be clear, are you saying race or gender played a role in this tragedy?
It may have. I don't know. Incompetence might have played a role. We'll let you know that.